Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tearing down the glowing screens and smooth glass of our everyday devices to see how they're actually built from the ground up. You can really think of a modern device like a living organism, right? It needs a physical nervous system to shoot signals around and a logical digital brain to make all the decisions. So today, we are completely mastering the anatomy of modern electronics. Here's our engineering blueprint for today. First, the end of loose wires, then designing the circuit board, followed by the brain, embedded systems. After that, connecting to the real world, and finally, powering the future. All right, section 1, the end of loose wires, and how we replaced all that chaotic wiring. Okay, let's dive into this. Before the modern era, circuits were built using messy, incredibly bulky loose wires. Early aerospace computers actually weighed hundreds of pounds literally just from the wire alone. It's crazy. Plus, they were notoriously unreliable and super prone to accidental short circuits. But today we use the printed circuit board, or PCB. By etching these precise conductive copper pathways right onto a flat board, it completely replaces the absolute chaos of loose wiring with structured, compact reliability. Moving right along to section 2, designing the circuit board. This is all about crafting the physical body. So the journey of PCB design is this really precise chronological jump from an abstract idea into physical reality. It always kicks off with step 1, the schematic. Think of this as a purely logical diagram. It shows how components connect electrically without worrying at all about where they're going to physically sit. Then we make the leap to step 2, the layout. This is where engineers actually arrange the physical components and route the copper traces between them. Step 3 brings the whole thing into the real world through manufacturing, where the bare board is fabricated. And finally, step 4 is assembly. This is where components are rapidly soldered onto the board using some seriously high-speed automated pick-and-place machinery. It's just awesome to watch. Now, routing those copper traces is definitely not just about drawing a line from point A to point B. It is a high-speed, high-stakes balancing act. First off, trace width matters a lot. If an engineer makes a trace too thin, it just can't safely handle the electrical current and, well, it's going to overheat. Plus, as our devices operate at higher and higher frequencies, signal integrity becomes a massive headache. Poorly designed routing can actually cause signal interference, reflection, and totally catastrophic data errors. Like I said, it is a high-stakes environment on that tiny little board. So how exactly do engineers keep the whole system from just tearing itself apart with all that interference? Well, they use ground planes. These are dedicated conductive layers connected straight to electrical ground. You can kind of picture them as an anchor. They absorb electrical noise and keep the entire circuit incredibly calm and stable, even amidst all that high-speed electrical chaos going on around them. To give you an idea of how far we've pushed this technology, just think about the number 10. 10 plus, actually. That is the number of conductive layers packed into the unbelievably tiny space of a modern smartphone PCB. 10! Engineers stack these multi-layer boards to pull off far more complex trace routing than a single-layer board could ever dream of supporting. It really is an absolute marvel of modern manufacturing. Okay, section 3, the brain, embedded systems. This is where we give the hardware a purpose. We call this digital brain an embedded system. Basically, it's a small, dedicated computer built directly into a larger device. The key takeaway here is how it compares to, say, the laptop or desktop you're probably using right now. A general-purpose computer is designed to do a million different things reasonably well. But an embedded system? It's designed to do just one job, or maybe a very small set of jobs, but to do them flawlessly and extremely reliably. Now, what's really interesting here is the literal core component, the actual brain tissue of most embedded systems. That's the microcontroller. A fantastic example of this is the ARM Cortex-M family. It's a wildly popular platform used across industrial, consumer, and automotive tech literally everywhere. Let's unpack some of the jargon and look at what is actually squeezed onto that single tiny microcontroller chip. It essentially combines 3 crucial things. You've got a processor to crunch the numbers, memory to store the instructions, and input-output capabilities so it can actually talk to the rest of the board. And yeah, that whole shebang is on one single chip. But, a brain needs thoughts, right? That's exactly where firmware comes in. Firmware is the specialized software running directly on that microcontroller. It's typically written in low-level languages like C. And because these brains are usually buried deep inside machines that definitely don't have screens or keyboards, engineers have to use highly specialized tools just to see what the firmware is thinking, and to effectively debug the code. Now, sometimes the tasks this brain handles are absolutely critical to human safety. That is when engineers bring in an RTOS, or real-time operating system. When precise timing and predictable, down-to-the-millisecond responses are a hard requirement, an RTOS is non-negotiable. I mean, think about modern vehicles. They pack dozens of microcontrollers managing everything from engine control to the deployment of your airbags. You definitely don't want your airbag controller waiting on a software lag, right? Moving into Section 4, connecting to the real world. Let's talk about interacting with physics. So the crucial point is figuring out how data actually moves in and out. The device uses sensors as its eyes and ears to detect physical conditions in the environment. On the flip side, it uses actuators as its muscles to produce a physical action or a change based on whatever the brain decides. Let's anchor this in a relatable example you probably have sitting on a wall in your house right now, a smart thermostat. It's a classic embedded system. It uses a temperature sensor to constantly monitor the room, and then, based on its firmware instructions, it triggers an actuator to turn your heating or cooling system on or off. It's just a perfect, continuous loop of reading the world and reacting to it. But what happens when we take that localized, embedded system and actually give it a voice to talk to the rest of the world? Well, we get the Internet of Things, or IoT. By simply adding wireless connectivity, a standard embedded system completely transforms into a globally connected device. It's suddenly capable of sending and receiving critical data remotely over the internet, kind of like a doorbell camera pinging your phone from halfway across the world. And that brings us to Section 5, powering the future, focusing on energy efficiency. Let's move to the final piece of the engineering puzzle and see how this all builds together. Power consumption is absolutely critical, especially for battery-powered devices deployed out in the field that are expected to run for months or even years without ever seeing a wall outlet. Engineers have to meticulously select low-power physical components for the PCB, and they have to write incredibly efficient firmware code specifically designed to minimize power draw, because out there, every single milliwatt counts. To summarize everything we've explored in the explainer today, PCB design and embedded systems really don't exist in isolation. Together, they form the complete physical and logical foundation of nearly all modern electronic products. Mastering both of these disciplines is exactly what equips an electrical engineer to take a mere concept, breathe actual life into it, and shepherd the whole thing all the way to a finished, manufacturable device. Which leaves us with a massive question to ponder. If this is how we engineer the electrical foundations for tiny, micro-scale electronics, what happens when we apply these exact same electrical engineering principles to scale way up to renewable energy? I'm talking about designing massive solar inverters and giant wind turbine electricals. Think about that for a bit, because that is exactly what we're going to uncover in our next explainer. Thanks so much for learning with me today.